one of the problems that I had with step 2 and step 3 that I think is really important to address, I spent 13 years in church, in and out of church, using. I'd go to church and I'd try to get sober, and I would teach Sunday school, and I would teach women's Bible study. I was a part of a worship team. I would get high and go to church and lead worship high. I talked about doing acid and being a part of being the president of the youth group. So I'd been in church all my life. And then my using and my drinking would get so bad that there was no way to hide it, and so I'd stop going to church for a while, and I would spiral down into this horrible place with my drinking and my using and my eating disorder. And so when I got to the program and I got to step 2 and step 3, I was terrified about step 2 and step 3. To look at the idea that there was a power greater than myself.
Were you angry at God?
I was so angry at God because I'd spent years trying to be good enough to get God to remove this problem. I'd go to church and I'd try to act my way into the grace of God. I'd work really hard to try to get God to remove this thing that was wrong with me. And I'd see everybody else in church, and it would look like they all had it together and like everything was working for them. And I'd think, well, why isn't God doing it for me? And then I'd get mad and I'd quit trying. And I'd just say, well, why try? I might as well just go out there and be as bad as I can be and do as much as I can do and just forget it, because it's not going to work anyway. So I got to the program and I got sober. I quit drinking. And I started working with a sponsor, and then I saw this, okay, step 2 and step 3, come to believe that God can restore me to sanity. Well, maybe He can. And then I'm going to have to turn my life and my will over to this care of this God that hasn't ever really worked out for me anyway. And there was this sense of absolute being angry, and then this terror, this absolute fear and trembling about, how's that going to work? Because it hasn't ever worked anyway. And so it was a slow process and a lot of fear for me to have to, and what happened for me is going to the meetings and trusting the people, the support group, and getting to know God in a different way. And it took a long time for me in sobriety.
You had a lot to overcome.
I had a lot to overcome. It took a long time for me in sobriety to get willing to go back to church, to go back to the God of my childhood, and to believe that that God was going to care for me.